plumbers, welders, bricklayers, food vendors. Thank you for us because we are back to work. Thank Buhari for us because we are back to work. Unquote. I recall them from my visit to the Oyo State site, where I met from Lagos working at the site with the husband as a mason and bricklayer, while the wife sold food to workers. I also spoke then about plans to include members of the informal sector in the housing program through the expansion and registration of more cooperatives and assisting people to key into the program, because within the financing sector, it had become important to ensure that those who have legitimate assets and income, but were not in the formal recorded form, could still be assisted to participate in home ownership. I also acknowledge that there was a challenge in the nation's housing sector, but insisted that the way to solve it was not to be intimidated by the size, but to focus on how to overcome it in bit by bit, urging that the size of the problem should not dampen the enthusiasm to seek for solutions. Of course, I also disagree with the estimated size of the nation's housing deficit because it lacked any empirical basis. If we fast forward to the present and this 2021 conference, holding even as our country, as indeed the entire world, is still grappling with the socio-economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, I have nothing but progress to report about how the build industry, operatives, professionals, and other stakeholders have contributed to increasing the stock of affordable and accessible home ownership in the pre- and post-COVID era. Indeed, housing delivery in COVID-19 era and beyond, the strategies for affordability and accessibility was the theme at the 9th edition of the National Council meeting on lands, housing, and urban development, which held in Jos, Plateau State. And most of the recommendations at that meeting remain up for the gathering here today. But permit me to dwell on the progress report pertaining to my submissions at the 2017 conference. As part of the President Muhammadu Buhari's developmental agenda of addressing housing needs in Nigeria, the federal government inaugurated a pragmatic housing program, NHP, for the construction of acceptable and affordable houses nationwide. The first phase of the program commenced in the 2016 financial year and FCT. The reason why we have not commenced in two states, Lagos and Rivers, was that we couldn't get land from the state at that time. But as I'm talking to you now, effort is being made to build in these two states. Further to the above, the ministry is promoting local content in line with the Executive Order 3 and 5. The use of available local building materials in the NHP has stimulated the economy through the production and use of these materials. The overall economic value chain arising from the housing construction activities is mostly beneficial to the Nigerian youth who are directly involved in the physical production of the houses. The philosophy behind the NHP is the provision of pilot housing scheme that is affordable, accessible, and acceptable as contained in the National Housing. The approach to the design and use of materials takes cognizance of the cultural and environmental considerations of the regions, thereby responding to the tenets of the building energy and championed by the ministry. A total of 1,021 building contractors have been engaged under Phase 1 and 2 of the program since the inception in 2016, and 13,680 and 41,040 direct and indirect jobs have been generated. During this period, the ministry has undertaken the construction of 4,694 housing units, and out of which 2,249 units have been completed in 34 states and FCT, with a total of 41 sites spread over 34 states and FCT. This does not include other initiatives by the ministry, such as housing development through public-private partnership, PPP initiatives, and site and service schemes across the states. It also does not include houses delivered by the Federal Housing Authority, FHA, and the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, both of who are parastatals of the ministry engaged in housing delivery and finance. A lot has also happened with regards to the policy on cooperatives, which was in its embryonic stage in 2017, and this was also reported at the council meeting as follows. Quote, I am in a position to update council that the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, has been the driver of the initiative at Federal Government of Nigeria level, and they have 86 cooperatives engaged in projects. 35,784 million cumulatively approved. 3. 10.95 billion cumulatively disbursed. 4. 57 cooperative housing development loans under processing as at January 2021. The potential for accessibility and affordability is that 1. Cooperative members can choose what they want and therefore design and build to fit their own individual and group budgets. 2. Cooperatives can leverage their members to get group discount for purchase of building materials and engagement of contractors to build. Because state governments control much more land, the use of the land as a tool to enable cooperatives within their states to build can be very impactful in changing the affordability and accessibility paradigms in the COVID-19 era and beyond. As underscored during the council meeting, the federal government is fully aware that housing challenges are prevalent in urban centers, which should be understood as a symptom of urbanization. The rural areas face less challenges, as evidenced by a number of empty houses available for occupation. Urbanization creates excess demand, which in turn creates economic problems of demand and supply that is translated into price hike and scarcity. This ultimately impacts on affordability and accessibility of houses. It is evident that most houses available for sale or rent belong mostly to individuals and private companies compared to those the states or federal government have available. Therefore, many of the tenants who owe rent, who face eviction, or who seek to rent or buy property due to the pandemic are dealing with private citizens or companies, and less so with government agencies. Consequently, my recommendation for improving access and affordability in the COVID-19 era and beyond, as presented at the council meeting, and which is still apt for this gathering, is for private companies and individuals to give back some of what they control to citizens in the way the federal government of Nigeria has given back to citizens some of what it controls. For example, in cases where rent of businesses or individuals are due for renewal, the private landlords can give back by accepting monthly, quarterly, or half-yearly rent instead of 1 year, 2 or 3 years rent in advance. The risk of default can be secured by bank guarantees or insurance bonds provided by the tenant or the employer in exchange for a direct debit mandate for the employer for the deduction of his rent from his salary to pay the landlord. Where rent has fallen into arrears, it is possible to emulate what federal government of Nigeria did through the CBN to reschedule payment on loans by rescheduling the payment for the tenant to more affordable terms instead of adopting eviction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, notably, all of these are matters of voluntary action by property owners and a matter of concern. And perhaps the question to ask is whether we can do for ourselves or give to one another what we ask government to do for us or give to us. Beyond voluntary action, there is state intervention which can facilitate access and affordability. Hence, the recommendation to the Council to consider intervention by way of recommending a legislation that limits how much advance rent can be demanded or paid for renting accommodation. This is a fertile and yet largely untapped ground for state legislators to connect with their constituents by making legislation that regulate the demand for prohibitive advance rent payments in areas of high density where the bulk of the people live. This because rent is not a federal matter. I venture to predict that a legislator or groups of legislators who take action in this regard will walk into the warm embrace of their constituents at the appropriate time for having delivered through representation. The sanction for non-compliance is that this will be a self-enforcing legislation in that the state apparatus, such as the courts, will not help any party to such a contract and get relief, as it will be a patently illegal contract. This has been tried in other jurisdictions within and outside Nigeria, and it has helped to improve accessibility and affordability. Many empty properties in our urban centers remain inaccessible or unaffordable because of some of the factors associated with advance rent, and they can be unlocked if we act. On this note, I enjoin you all to have a fruitful deliberation which hopefully will advance the cause of affordable housing and further stimulate the housing economy nationwide. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Please, can we give him another round of applause? We just called the individuals to present 4 awards, and the reason why we said that we want to present them is because of the category that they are. So, thank you so much. I'd like to call all the board members. Mr. Festus, where are the board members of the Abuja International Housing Show? Please join. Hakim All board members, please join His Excellency.
Yes, please keep updated. The President of the Professional Bodies to please join us. President of Professional Bodies. President NIPS to please join us for this celebration.
And then we need to apologize to the Jews.
Yes. I think it's time for me. One of our board members, I forgot to recognize him when I was speaking during the welcome address. So it's my pleasure to introduce him, Mr. Kunle Faleti, popularly known as Mr. Housing. He stays in America, and all the time he comes to Abuja Housing Show. I think this is his 15th edition. Can we give him a round of applause? 15th edition.
All right. Please maintain social distance. Yes. So you're supposed to be there. All right. The first recipient, ladies and gentlemen, is the Minister of the Year, and she is none other than the Minister.
This first award we are presenting it to the Honorable Minister for States, Works and Housing, Republic of Ghana, for our relentless efforts in ensuring that there's affordable housing provision in Africa. This is our fourth time of coming to attend Abuja International Housing. During the first time, she came with the leaders of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Second time, they also came. So it's my pleasure. First, to get that award, I want the LB of Sheffield say their votes in Sheffield Africa. So please come and join us in the presentation of this award by the Honorable Minister of State Works and Housing of the Federal Republic of Ghana, who is from Ghana. MB Sheffield Africa, we need attention for. Minister of Housing, Minister of State for Housing, West Africa, affordable housing.
Dr. Honorable Fred Sugar. You may not know, I am a survivor of COVID. I know what it means to have COVID. I was admitted for 10 days, November, December 2020. I had a very serious one, so I have the experience. That's why I don't joke with it. I know if you know me, if you see my eye, you recognize me. You don't have to see my mouth. And if you want to know, I am smiling under the mask. So please, I apologize for not removing the mask. The cameramen, they always ask me to remove my mask. So the place is so crowded. That's why. It's my pleasure to present this award on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. This housing show, Abuja, the 2021 housing show. Congratulations.
All right, the next recipient.
The second award goes to the state government.
Well, I would like to say a very big thank you to the organizers and to my Honorable Minister for this wonderful award. I'm honored and privileged to have this prestigious award. And I'm not saying that it will urge me on to work harder. And surprisingly, since I ventured into this industry, the awards keep on coming. And I remember recently I met with my president, and he told me the figure, I know the passion you have for the housing industry. So be focused and continue. I believe this will serve as an inspiration and motivation to a lot of women to venture into the industry. Thank you, Abuja Housing Show. Thank you, Festus, and thank you, Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Next, Lagos State Governor. The governor on coming to power introduced real estate regulatory program. A lot of things are happening in the real estate sector. As the owner of a popular housing program on AIT and TVC, we have so many complaints against a lot of estate developers. The Lagos State government have been doing very well in regulating the activities in that sector. And it's on that note, we are recognizing the governor, Sanwo-Olu Babajide, at this 15th Abuja International Housing Show. My Honorable Minister.
This award is for Mr. Governor, Mr. Baba Gide Olusolu Sanwo-Olu, as a housing-friendly governor. I am giving you this award on behalf of your former governor, His Excellency, Honorable Minister Baba Tunde Baji Fashola, SAN, PRF. It's my pleasure to present to you, and you are receiving on behalf of the governor. This is a very heavy award received by two persons.
Remain just two other awardees who are state governors. The governor of Borno State, the representative to please come forward. The governor of Yobe State. These two governors, despite the Boko Haram attack on daily basis, are still producing low-cost housing for their citizens. We must put on record today that the governor of Yobe State has produced 3,500 low-cost housing being financed by Family Homes Fund. So it's my pleasure to invite the representative of the governor of Yobe State. And that is the state of my honorable minister.
Don't think because I am the one giving the award that I have arranged it. No, I'm just finding it now that he has earned it. So he has actually earned this award. He's my governor, the governor of Yobe State, where I come from. And this award goes to him, His Excellency, Honorable Mala Buni, for housing-friendly governor. I present this award on behalf of His Excellency, Baba Tunde Baji Fashola, SAN, to Alhaji Bukar, who is representing the awardee here. So it's my pleasure to be the one to present this award to you for our delivery to the governor. Don't go and keep it in your office. Okay. Thank you.
And the last but not the least, the Borno State governor. His other name is called Mr. Project. Mr. Project. It's my pleasure. Honorable Minister.
On behalf of my colleague, Honorable Abatunde Raji Fashola, Honorable Minister for Works and Housing, SAN, I present this award to Professor Babagana Umar Zulu, Affordable Housing Governor of the Year. And I'm presenting this award to you for on delivery to him. Congratulations. Actually, when the MC was introducing my previous engagement in the housing sector, I have one thing I want to share. I supervise under a loan, a housing estate. The loan is secured from Federal Mortgage Bank. In the year 2005, we built about 700 housing units at a cost of 700, around 800,000 naira per unit. 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, and a courtyard. I was made the project engineer. I had to work from 6 to 6 for over 6 months. And thank God, I have not felt sick even once, and I have not missed to go to the site every day for these 6 months. I was able to deliver these houses. And eventually, I was made managing director in that organization. And I doubled as the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Housing, where we continue to deliver houses. We use hydroform to deliver houses in and around the state, in Damaturu and around the state. As I was on that assignment, I eventually became the deputy governor of the state. And I've been there for 10 years, 10 and a half years as a deputy governor, before eventually now I came to be the minister for housing, works and housing, where I continue to work in the housing sector and road construction. So this is actually, but the highlight was that housing estate that we built, because we could not afford any filterage. We could not afford to lose single material. Everything must be targeted to building these houses at low cost. So 800,000 per unit. We were able to provide funds with the other stories about it. I think Mr. Festus needs to come and give me consultancy, because there's so much to it. We have learned a lot, and we are still practicing that in the production of mass housing. Thank you very much. I think my task is over. I can go down now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you give His Excellency a round of applause? Your Excellency, just before we go, after we'll have your other colleague and our landlord speak. When he is done, we'll have another function yet for you to perform before you leave. We thank you because we know that this is one of those very rare occasions where you have a minister sit at the event. In fact, he was one of those who got here first. He was at the VIP lounge, and then, of course, he's still here. So we thank him. We do appreciate that. We don't take it for granted. Can we please give him another round of applause? And of course, to all the other ministers who are here, who have remained till this time, it shows that this is very important to you. Thank you so much for staying. We know that your schedule is amazingly tight, but thank you all the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to recognize here in our midst before the speech of our host minister. I'd like to recognize the presence of the MD Urban Shelter, Hajia Sadia Amini Aliyu. Can we please give her a round of applause? I know she doesn't like to be publicly recognized, but we see your work. Thank you so much for what you do. God bless you. All right, next, ladies and gentlemen, it is my senior honor to recognize His Excellency and bring him upstage to make his remarks. Honorable Mohammed Bello, the Honorable Minister of Federal Capital Territory, who is ably represented by the Permanent Secretary of FCT, Mr. Olusegun Adeshola. Can you please give him a round of applause as he comes for his remarks?
The representative, His Excellency, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, ably represented in this event, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, the Honorable Minister of State for Works and Housing, Engineer Abubakar B. Aliyu, the Chairman of the occasion, and former Minister of Environment, Sobios Suleiman Zarma, the state governors here present are represented by their various high-level officials, president of the various organizations here present, the Honorable Minister of State for Works and Housing of Ghana, or the Republic of Ghana, who also brandished her newly acquired doctorate degree to us today. Further Center, I think I also have to go and get my own, so that by the next event I will also be a doctor. The other guests here present, my colleague, the Acting Executive Secretary, FCD, Ajaz Salihao Ahmed, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I took the liberty of being the host to go through this protocol list because I observed that the Honorable Minister of State for Works and Housing did a good job in presenting the protocol list, and I should naturally have climbed on her shoulders. But I said, as the person representing his brother, who is the host of all of us, let me take this liberty to also recognize others. I thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister will have desired to be here because it was only just in the early hour of this morning that I received a directive that I'm the former representative. So while doing so, he also gave me his goodwill address and messages to deliver to this auspicious gathering. He said, and I read, I am quite delighted to be here today at this opening ceremony of the 15th Abuja International Housing Show. May I begin by welcoming all delegates, investors, exhibitors, and other stakeholders involved in the housing and construction industry who have traveled from within and outside Nigeria to Abuja for this all-important event. Permit me also to congratulate the Housing and Construction Show Limited and its numerous partners and collaborators for sustaining the Abuja International Housing Show for 15 years and nurturing it from a small gathering of exhibitors to becoming Africa's biggest housing and construction event. Your dedication and commitment to the growth and development of the housing sector is indeed commendable and in tandem with our efforts for the provision of affordable housing and equally our urban renewal agenda. Over the past decade, the FCT has witnessed an unprecedented increase, and this has inevitably put a huge strain on housing, city infrastructure, and utilities. An increase in unauthorized residential dwellings, in the rise of shanties and slums, as well as spike in the attendant social vices that accompany such housing situations. While we are making concerted efforts to remove such slums and shanty dwellings, a more plausible solution to this problem is the massive provision of affordable housing for the low and middle income earners. This can only be achieved with an active participation of the private sector in every aspect of this huge agenda. We are already taking the first bold step in making this a reality with the recent approval of the FCT Land Swap Initiative by the Federal Executive Council. This initiative, which is a globally recognized and accepted method of urban development, will take the huge financial burden for the provision of infrastructure of the government and transfer it to capable private investors. It also ensures a win-win situation for the government, the private sector investors, and most importantly, ordinary Nigerian citizens of all categories who will have access to land, encased in the essential urban infrastructure on which to build their homes. We are encouraged by the number and pedigree of investors that have indicated interest in the Land Swap program. It is our intention that as many Nigerians as possible will have access to decent living conditions in the FCT via this initiative. However, there still exists the dilemma of access to finance by any homeowner. While it is reassuring to know that modern financial institutions are well represented here, I urge them to do more in sensitizing members of the public on their services and the advantages of financing home ownership through this method. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is our expectation that this international housing event will showcase some of the newer innovations in building and construction technology that will take into cognizance not only environmental concerns, but also the rising cost of conventional building materials without compromising on quality. In a similar vein, kindly permit me to use this opportunity to admonish housing developers in their city to always follow all extant development control guidelines, as violations that lead to avoidable consequences such as flooding or building collapse will not be tolerated. As the organization saddled with the task of developing a world-class capital city for our country, our doors remain open and we welcome all innovations and ideas that will add value to our task of building a capital territory of which we will all be proud. On that note, I hereby declare open the 15th Abuja International Housing Show, and I wish you all a rewarding and productive experience. Thank you for your attention, and may God bless us.
I will give His Excellency another round of applause. Thank you for being an amazing host in the last 15 years. Thank you so much. Permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to recognize finally on our list the President of Nigeria Institution of Building, the President of the Nigeria Institute of Building, Brother Kole Ayobobo. Can you please give me a round of applause? Thank you. And finally, for the vote of thanks, it is my solemn honor, ladies and gentlemen, to call up stage Reverend Obu Chin for the closing remarks. Please give him a round of applause. He is a chairman of the occasion. I'm very good friend for over 20 years now. I'd like to stand on existing protocols. My job is very simple. I'd like to say thank you so much for being part of a movement that a young man started 15 years ago to showcase the fact that one man can make a difference. It's a lesson and a story to all of us. That individually, we should know that we are capable in our own little niche in our own office to start a movement that can change our environment and bring to bear those latent desires we have of being a change agent in our environment. That is the history of Abuja International Housing Show. For those who have come from far and near, I want to thank you for your persistence in coming to support a worthy cause. I want to thank Dr. Frida. She has not only shown it in her work, but all over the whole place she has been in South Africa. She has always spoken about the International Housing Show. We are very proud of you. Thank you so much, madam. We are proud of you. Take our joy and take our gratitude with you to Ghana. My good friend, Andy Chipenda, thank you. We are aware of what we are trying to do, going to the stock market in Nigeria to make sure that we have Naira-denominated means to build houses in Nigeria. We are trying to remove a huge bottleneck that stood in the way of doing what you have never loved to do. For being there in the forefront of that, we appreciate you so much. I appreciate the various ministers who are here. We thank you so much for what you are trying to bring on board. Not only supporting the private sector, but being in the forefront. I was so happy that the Honorable Minister mentioned that for 4 years we have been here, 2017, going back to recount the effort that has been made to be able to ensure that we have this going on forward. I want to thank the various captains of industries, the presidents of professional bodies, the representatives of the governors who are here. I want to thank in particular the two that received the award on behalf of the governors, because they have showcased what it is to make a difference in spite of the challenges in their various states. Thank you so much. Please take our regards to your excellencies, that we appreciate what they have shown. That the limitations of the socio-economic challenge and security challenges could not stop them from moving the dial forward for the environment. On behalf of the stakeholders of the Abuja International Housing Show, we'd like to also to thank the media for being here with us, TVC, we are on air, live, and also to appreciate other people who have been one with the guest speakers who will be soon starting to make sure that we discuss in detail various aspects of the space in the housing industry. I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank in particular also the various people who are in the background ensuring that what we are doing gets to function properly while we are in the front end, in the front office, directing affairs. So on behalf of the stakeholders, I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for coming, and may we continue to be the change agents in our environment. Thank you and God bless you. Thank you so much. I thought we were in this together. I find that I am the only one handling this aspect of the event. I want to thank everyone who's been here, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. But just before we exit the hall to the exhibition hall, we'd like to invite the awardees to please come forward for a group photograph with Your Excellencies. So please, we'll ask you to please come up stage. Your Excellency, if you may. So that, okay, they are readies. Once they are done, then we invite the Honorable Minister to join them. And then there are other photographs that we need to take. Then we take the national anthem before we exit the hall for the exhibition. All right?
Affordability has been
On stage.
There's an innovation called Right to Buy. There's an innovation called Air to Buy. That's what they call no interest.
Mr. Festus.
These are how we'll be looking at in the next 4 days.
Maybe
There must be a way
just.
out. Affordability must be handled.
Okay.
Through creativity,
They have those.
through innovation.
Can we have their own
My name
award?
is Festus Adebayo. I've not changed that name. International Housing Chair. I'm a real estate professional and an assistant vice president, mortgage operations.
Mr. Festus, if we can hear you, please, can we have you quickly join us for these pictures?
Basically, the event is still ongoing. We've had the remarks and the goodwill speeches from
Sure, they can hear in the exhibition area. Mr. Festus, you're really around here.
Honorable Minister for Environment. We have represented.
If it is the photographers, they are never done because they must take
It's good to smile for the picture if what we're doing is good.
Thank you very much. Can you please give them a round of
As soon as they go for their seats, of course, we'll be getting set for the national anthem in a bit. Let's allow them the rituals of pictures. And they're doing that well. So immediately after that, we'll get ready. We'll be going into just go around to see what's happening at the exhibition hall. Exhibitors have come from all over the world, mainly Africa, but we have all over the world, and there are beautiful materials exhibited. It's important that you go and see them before we take your leave.
Your Excellency, thank you so much. Can you please give me a round of applause? Are you ready?
Let me once again appreciate Madam Ogochukwu Chile, who's the immediate past president of WIDA, and he came all the way from Enugu with his beautiful wife. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. Please put your hands together for me.
Prayers for the national anthem. We'd like to thank you as we proceed to the exhibition hall. On behalf of myself, MC Amana, and my colleague, Deputy Head of the Legend, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an honor. hosting this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please make sure that you don't just go into the exhibition hall. Once you go to the main floor on the top left, it leads directly into the hall. Please